Well, here's something I had. My distributor, who is in Florida, he actually landed a golf course account, and the person is going to do all their greens for the entire year. And they're going to they're putting out 7 different products. So it was a substantial amount, and basically he's always been very organic minded, and pesticides he tries not to use. So it's going to be a great place to be able to do these trials and everything.
All right, we're all on. Thank you, Carl. Sorry about that, guys.
How are you today, Tim?
We're well. We're experiencing actually some nice weather today, so which has been good mentally.
Yeah, needed.
Yeah, it was 70 and clear here yesterday, which is extremely warm for this time of year here. But so let me first start by Mark Rodriguez is the owner of Sentinel Biologics, based out of Houston area of Texas, and Mark and I met one another back around 2007 or 8. And we were both with a firm who did similar things to what is being done right now today. And so Mark eventually progressed out on his own. And then I went, of course, along my way still in my industry. And Mark approached me Mark actually approached me a number of times, and I kept turning him down. But eventually I said yes. So that's the relationship between the two of us. We've known one another for, I guess, going on almost 11 years now. And Mark is a molecular microbiologist, Texas A&M grad. And he is the manufacturer. And so essentially our relationship is, I let Mark know what it is I'm trying to do agronomically, and Mark puts together the items that I need. And basically, I established my own brand, my own company and everything. So we are 2 separate companies, but we're associated, from a business standpoint.
Well, I assume, and I don't need to know all your business, but I've built a lot of businesses for people only to see them be, marginalized by mother thing. Does Mark have the ability to sell his stuff to other the same exact thing we're doing?
Mark, I'll let you answer that.
Yes. Jeff, we're selling the exact same product or species or formulations to others, or no. What we've decided to do with Frank is to have these formulations specifically in concentrations, those strains, the way they're derived, formulated, packaged. That's specifically for Frank and his group for distribution. And so we don't do the same packaging or the same types of formulations for everyone.
But you could sell it, like if somebody came to you, let's say Frank goes for a couple of years and we build this thing out. If somebody comes to you and say, hey, we want all those products and we want them under our label, what's to stop you from doing that? Does he have a contractual relationship or?
No. And I would discuss with Frank. We have a long running relationship, goes back over 10 years. What I would think is if another company came to us, it would be for a specific product, not necessarily all these, types of products that we have currently with Frank. We would want a specific product for something batch or whatever the case may be, that we could always formulate differently for.
Sure.
On the circumstance, but not all these, lineup of products. That would be specifically for Frank.
Okay. So just our history is, we're missing one. We're down a man here. Just Kevin Smith, another one of our reps. He had a medical situation that came up that he had to take care of. So we'd have one more here. And then there was someone else we also would have here, but he's at a show. So but just give you what's going on with us. And then Chris is in the Carolinas, obviously. We're up in the Midwest. We're about a mile from BWI. We cover all the way up into Jersey, a little bit into New York, but mainly Eastern PA, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, down to about Richmond. And then Chris picks up the Carolinas, and he focuses not on all of the Carolinas, but Myrtle Beach and around the Asheboro area, and he's kind of growing that. But something like this is kind of in our wheelhouse, but go ahead and make your presentation, and we'll ask questions.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, as you can see, I've shared a screen website, and that'll probably be more for later on. But what I want to do is, since not everyone, I know Chris and I had a long conversation in Carolinas when we met a few months back, and so I apologize for some redundancy. But so essentially, what we're doing is producing gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. That's your two different types of bacteria that are out there. Within those two types of bacteria, you have sexual propagation, and you can have binary fission or essentially asexual propagation. And Mark, you're welcome to step in at any point that you feel, but so asexual propagation or binary fission, which is BINARY, produces offspring that are true to type. So, they're identical to the parent. This is important because you don't have the mutating species within, as if you would if you were propagating sexually produced bacteria. So it helps to eliminate the mutations. Pure strains, true to type, like I said, from the parent. One thing that's important with bacteria is the ability to withstand environmental changes. Everything from temperature to moisture, be it low temps, high temps. Our bacteria can withstand, cryogenic freezing. So it's going to take the low temp end. And on the high temp end, at least 160 degrees mark, they can tolerate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In excess of 180 degrees Fahrenheit, they can tolerate, and even higher when it comes to, say, putting on dry fertilizers during granulation, where you have temperatures, at about 300 degrees Celsius. At certain points, that bacteria can form spores and are able to withstand extreme temperatures and pressures.
So this is so important because about 90+% on the market right now are gram-negative bacteria. Most of them are sexually produced bacteria. And, you hear about, when they ship, they have to be kept in cold storage, or you have to actually culture them on site. That's the reason, because the mortality rate of gram-negative sexually producing bacteria, they have about a 50% mortality rate in 24 hours, and within a few days, they're going to be completely gone. So they're going to have a mortality rate at close to 100%. The bacteria that we are producing on the gram-positive side, again, asexual reproduction, they actually have the temperature range we were discussing, plus they can tolerate complete drought situations and flooded situations, so much so that the products can be used in hydroponic growing in solution. Additionally, the gram-negative bacteria can also tolerate these same temperatures and the dry or wet conditions. But the companies that are out there, literally from the time that they produce their product, it has got to be put in either cold storage, refrigeration, or you have to have an on-site manufacturing design. And if any of you are familiar with Hoganics, I'm sure you saw a lot of refrigerators out there, and there was actually some folks that were formulating for Hoganics right on their golf courses. You don't have that nonsense. You don't have all that. Our products are dry, water-soluble powders, which is quite unique in the industry because majority of the competitors, again, are in liquid. So ultimately, it's more convenient, and you save money in front. It makes a huge difference.
And you're also saying there's no damage from UV, because that's always been something with biologicals. They've always said that's a problem.
Correct. You're welcome to chime in on that if you'd like.
Yeah. When it comes to UV, no damage. Once the bacteria becomes spore forming, which means they're just in a suspended animation state, they have a real thick outer shell that keeps them from being controlled or killed by UV irradiation or temperatures, pressures, salinity, and things like that. So there's no issue with UV light being in a clear jug, for example, outside, or being sprayed and remaining on the foliage of a plant or the canopy of grass.
So when somebody sprays a chemical on top of them, what's degradation there?
Very little, because the testing we've done is that when you have a blend or combination of bacteria with a fungicide or an herbicide or a nematicide or any kind of chemical insecticide, there's going to be very little control or killing of the bacteria unless it's a biocide. Fungicides will control and attack fungal pathogens, nematicides, nematodes, herbicides, weeds. Only sides, which are very not used much at all in ag or turf, will control a bacterial product. So
would you recommend them? I mean, would you say it's okay to mix with a fungicide, or would you rather than put it out by itself?
The preference is to put it out by itself.
Okay.
However, you can tank mix together with any chemical, really.
Well, the one positive in the Mid-Atlantic, where we are, just between Chris and I, it's night and day. He's on different grasses, different everything. We spray more chemicals up where we are than anywhere else in the world. That's probably an accurate statement. I don't think of anybody that's even close. So that being said, what I do like about your program is it's pretty much done as far as application by the end of May, or actually by the end of June, because really up here, that July 1 is when everything starts getting ignorant as far as chemicals, and these guys go back hard to their chemical training, which is what every superintendent is trained from the time they're born at universities, is obviously, applying chemicals as the solution. Some of these guys will tell you they need 100%. I laugh when they say that, because we've all been in offices where a guy's like, I got 2 days out of that spray. So I'm like,
right.
So was that at 100% for 2 days, or But it's funny how they hold the bar. But when it comes down to it, the performance is going to have to be the term they come up with: commercially acceptable turf. So that's going to be the key as far as the disease program goes up in the Mid-Atlantic. But we have been known as the people that are on cutting edge as far as this type of technology goes. So we're interested. We need to figure out, kind of let you continue your presentation, and then we'll put as many holes as we can, because our customers are going to do the same thing. So we need to have the answers.
Well, so what makes the product unique also is the storage shelf life. Now, granted, the gram positive have a 5-year shelf life. The gram negative have a 3-year, which is totally unheard of in the industry. Granted, people should be putting this material out as doing the right, doing what they're supposed to be. If you're going to buy it, you need to use it. But the nice thing is that the products can be kept in storage. The bacteria remaining basically in a state of hibernation until they come in contact with the soil. So Mark has been able to, in his years of expertise and research, he was able to identify how to do this, which literally is next to impossible to do. So much so that I'm assuming you all probably know a Dr. McCarty in turf. He's
What was the last name again?
McCarty. He was the leading guru at a University of Florida. Now he's at.
I'm not familiar with him, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, in any event, this is a gentleman that I was talking to one day at a trade show, and I said, hey, he asked what I was doing. I said, well, we're doing beneficial bacteria. And I said, we actually have products that, gram negative that have a 3-year shelf life. He goes, how'd you do that? And I said, well, I can't tell you, but it's been done. And, this technology has been out some time because, like I said, Mark is the one responsible for developing all of it.
Now, were you involved with Mark? Were you involved with a company that no longer exists?
Yeah, originally back in the day, I started working originally in biopharmaceuticals, doing genetic engineering for a good 5-6 years. Then I started working with other companies doing industrial microbiology for petroleum, and then eventually moving into agriculture and turf, golf courses, and kind of different sectors within soil health. So we've been able to really, over the past just few years, actually, able to really optimize and develop stability techniques during the processing that allow us to give these, all different forms and types of organisms long shelf lives, whereas previously it's been, from 48 hours many times to a couple months. Now we have minimum 2 years up to 5 years plus. Them. And so now it takes weight out of the equation, and we can package them accordingly so that you can use them only when needed.
So Frank has shared with me a few things I kind of want to review in terms of. So you got kind of some programs built, but every one of your product sheets basically says the same exact thing, except they have a different name on the top. And while you're not making claims, you're making claims. It's very kind of interesting. And so, whether it's black layer or insect, I'm curious how you're getting away with even putting insect on a label if you're not making a claim that you're doing something to, inhibit, put away, or fungicidal or insecticidal claims where they're not going to come after you, if you're not. And is there any intention in the future to make those claims after university testing supports them?
Well, I have no intention of getting into the EPA side of getting an EPA registration on any of my products.
Understand.
And how we're avoiding that is they're non-genetically modified organisms. And so I'm actually going to let Mark talk a little bit about this because this is really his baby from a regulatory standpoint. And he can explain and elaborate, but the way I'm marketing my products is they are probiotics and they remediate. Provided I do not use words like control, eradicate, or kill, I can legally do what I'm doing. And I can promote these products as such. And Mark, you can go ahead and...
That's pretty much it. We have spoken with representatives of the EPA, and we've been given the actual CDR exemption claims of which CDR you are exempt from any type of regulatory action if you naturally derived organisms that are non-GMO, and also you do not make any type of killing claim or control claim. What we with our terms like remediation or mineralization, those are terms that denote degrading simple and complex polymers. So many are in the soil around the root zone, also make up a fungus or a nematode egg or an insect, are simple and complex polymers. So whether they're chitin, whether they're keratin, whether they're something else that is a little bit complex, made up of several monomers together, you can then remediate them. That's what bacteria do. So the primary function of bacteria is to compost. And that means breaking down complex molecules into simpler ones that are then made available for plant use or crop use or turf use. That's the idea here is to not make any type of control claim or killing claim, eradication claim. It's just to make one that we are remediating, degrading polymers in the soil.
So let me interrupt you here, Mark. So basically, like, I kind of hearing this the second time around, I kind of understand is that, like, if you had the nematode product, your product basically turns the nematode into a vulnerable organism.
Yeah, it does. It begins to break apart either the wall of a nematode or the juvenile cyst of the nematode. Especially break it apart to allow it to be used for nutrients.
Gotcha.
What about the insect? How does that work?
Well, yeah, what it does is that if you have, say, slow-moving insects, or you have eggs of insects, larvae of insects, it can then basically attack those, kind of bioremediate, or degrade the composition that makes up that cyst or the larvae of the insect.
Okay.
You always want to attack the juveniles. You can't really attack the adults, because you can only control those through some kind of neurotoxin, kills them quickly because their shell wall is so thick. And whereas juveniles, cysts, larvae are much easier to begin to break down or remediate and allow them to be continually focused on as food source.
Well, up here, we have a severe problem with, it's called ABW. ABW is annual bluegrass weevil, has become, in some instances, devastating. And one of the problems with it is they're constantly being born. It's just there's no, hey, they come out here, they keep coming. So the money and money that's being spent on trying to go after them with the chemicals is pretty amazing. It's a stupid. The question is, will this have any efficacy on that process? Is it something you'd have to use more often than maybe the disease protocol? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions.
Yeah. Well, Frank and I have discussed this, and typically what we recommend is that initially, yes, you have much more of a consistent application, once every weeks to a month. And the idea is to have strong colonization of your bacteria in the soil. Because once the bacteria are placed down, it takes about 3 days for them to wake up and colonize. Once they get colonized, then you have soldiers in the soil that can then turn their attention to the larvae of the weevil, or whatever, the child of the weevil, and begin to then attack that. So once you have strong colonization, after a few months of consistent applications, you can then put it on a maintenance program where it doesn't have to be treated as often. But the idea is to highly colonize the soil.
So this is, okay, I understand this now. So basically, that's the reason for the 8, and then the 2 weeks later, the 4, is to basically front load the soil. So whatever, say the nematodes or the weevils, whatever, once they start their process, then you have enough there, you can start wiping them out or remediating them.
That's correct. Once the soil temperatures get to 60 degrees Fahrenheit and above consistently, the bacteria then can divide, theoretically once every 40 minutes. So you have high division happening in the soil, lots of biological activity. These bacteria were selected and chosen because of their ability to produce enzymes, acids, polymers, and surfactants that will then either, target and improve mineralization and nation of, nematode cysts, juveniles and things of that nature.
Well, the ABWs aren't really in the soil so much. They're more up on the surface and colonize, or eggs are laid kind of in the crown of the plant. They suck, in the crown. So they're not really in the soil. Would it still be effective or reach that if the bacteria in the soil?
Yeah. So what you want to do is, if it's on the foliage of a plant, for example, or the canopy of turf grass, what you want to do is put in some kind of sticker spreader to allow the bacteria to stay on the foliage or on the canopy, so that you have more colonization happening there, and then you get colonization happening in the soil as well as it drips down. You have colonization. That's the key to everything. If you can allow the bacteria to colonize, that just means sticking on something physically, whether it's a piece of mulch, whether it's a piece of roots, dirt, canopy. As long as it colonizes, then it can begin to overproduce the enzymes it needs to work to do what it's supposed to do.
And so, we're going to be asked, we've done this before, but successfully, I might add, quite successfully, with a BioJect system many years ago. But validation is always the key, and education will be the key. So if we're going to get into this, we would need both of you to come up. We could get 25, 30 superintendents in a room in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, in DC, and let you do a presentation. And we'd need that kind of support for this to really, go forward. And Chris, obviously, in the Carolinas. And we would be willing to help support that. But Frank also shared with me that you have the ability, or you have a patented process to validate your claims in terms of your numbers in the field, in soil and stuff. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, it's patent pending. I'm hoping to get the patent by the fourth quarter of the year. And really what it is, we call it our ecobiome. We're able to, I think we're one of the first companies, or the first company to be able to actually do a full microbial culturing of the soil. So we're able to define the soil. So currently, if you're to send a full sample to a lab and you wanted to know your microbial profile, they can provide you only one test called total aerobic, where it's kind of a 30,000 foot view, bird's eye view of the microorganisms in your soil, which doesn't really have much information. So what we're able to do now is that if a superintendent wanted to know the exact level of each microbial category in their soil, we can provide that to them with thresholds of where they should be based on our data. So if they wanted to know the microorganisms that cycle nitrogen, that solubilize phosphorus, that cycle potassium, calcium, zinc down the line, we could then break them up into different categories with thresholds so they can see where they are in their soil. So we can actually define it and differentiate every category. So we're starting off with nutrient cycling and release efficiency, really. So we're breaking down all the macro and micronutrients, because there's a microorganism responsible for releasing all the minerals and nutrients in the soil. We are now able to categorize each of those.
Wouldn't we want to get that prior to starting a program?
It's always good to do that. Absolutely. I think
to show you, here's where we started. Here's where your soils were. Now we're going to introduce this. Here's where we are, 3 months from there, and then validate. I mean, I'm, been at this 28 years, and there's so much crap done in this industry that there's no validation done.
Right.
A lot of different levels, and so much spin out there that if you come with that approach, and by the way, I would suggest charging for that initial evaluation. How much? I don't know the answer to that question. How many areas of the course would you need to do to get a mean? Would you need to do it on greens? Would you need to do it on tees? Would you need to do it on fairways? That's what they currently do now with soil testing.
Right.
Would that be official? If so, hell, that could be part of the whole process, that how we sell the products. But they would have to validate. Obviously, on the disease, they would validate on not those numbers, but on the lack of disease. On the insects, same there.
Absolutely. Right now, I think I spoke to several consultants and superintendents. I think currently they do on the microbial level these tests called Solvita tests, where you kind of look at off-gassing, CO2 and methane, where it's a very indirect method. So right now, there's just indirect testing done to determine whether microbial life has gone up or down in the soil, which, gives you a good idea. But to be able to actually have numbers and hard data on your microbial profile, I think would be very valuable to your customers, and give some real hard number validation before, during, and after.
Correct.
Every area, because if they're able to submit samples to a lab to have chemical analysis done of their soil and of their turf or of their grass, they can easily have those analysis done with our lab of the actual microbial
So
life.
is that your company that would be doing this?
Yes, yes. So we have the patent, and currently it's our company doing this, and we'll be able to provide the lab results.
And not to be too nosy, but who is your company? Is your wife behind you? How many people are part of this deal? Because this can become pretty intensive if we all of a sudden we have 50 guys that want to get their soul, all the rest of it. I mean,
Yeah, well, we're growing. It's my company. So Sentinel Biologics, I own 100%, and then I began this new company called EcoBiome Center, which I own also. We launched last year based on our patent pending platform. And we have some employees. We're actually working to scale up as well, and to provide some new products coming out, and also these new testing parameters and methods for this as well. So we're fully expecting to gear up to help launch this new type of testing service. I think one interesting thing in the whole field of microbiology for agriculture, just soil health in general, is that of all the microorganisms on Earth, we've only been able to isolate and identify not more than 5%. That's through medicine. That's every category: agriculture, petroleum, energy, medicine, veterinary health. That means 95% of all the microorganisms on Earth have yet to be isolated and grown in a lab to be characterized. So that's why we invented this new apparatus device, EcoBiome, that allows us to what soil is in nature, bring that in as wild type soil, and keep it in that form so we can fully characterize the remaining 95% of organisms. And so that's what's key and different about what we do that allows us to do types of tests that we'll be expanding upon later in 2019 to also include biocontrol, fungal, nematode. We're going to be expanding on the different types of testing we can do as well.
Okay. So if you're doing that and you're doing, he also told me that, and correct me if I'm wrong on a couple of these things. I got a million things running through my head right now. If we're putting this stuff out, we can then test to show them it's there. We're going to validate, hopefully, at least it counts with your test data. That might be a problem because it's not from an independent lab, although if it's a patented process and you're able to get, the people in those entities to say, yeah, he's not full of shit, that his protocols or whatever that he's showing you are real and are state of the art. Right. I mean, you laugh maybe, but I mean, you're going to have a bunch of people say, oh, it's just crap. He's building that. Good old Scots used to do soil tests, and they tell you exactly how many pounds of freaking Scots fertilizer to put out. And so that's just reality. And so,
I hear you. It's the nature of the beast, because being in microbial technology for as long as I have, that has allowed us to actually find out what the gap was in understanding the soil, and then come up with a new device and patent that to be able to quantify or define the soil space in microbial health. We do have all the strains, like the calcium solubilizing, zinc solubilizing, copper solubilizing, iron.
Well, that was the other question. Again, your literature is so, I'll just use the word benign.
It was done intentionally that way.
I understand why it was done. I'm not challenging you. I'm going to be challenged. And I would like to not go, well, Frank says that's the way he did it because he wanted to do it. My point is, okay, what Frank said is that we can tell you what strain, but or family. We can't
Yes.
do what strain. So the question is can you put the family on each of the labels? Or does that get you in trouble? Or are you going to have to say that verbally when you're showing them the label?
Well,
You know,
there's
we're
no
familiar with
problem with putting on the label. It's more of protecting the knowledge that we have acquired and what we're doing. So, for example, when we were talking about this prior, I said, yes, I do not know this. These are Mark strains. He's identified. He is numbered. They belong to him. And I don't know the strains. As far as the families go, for example, talking Bacillus firmus, subtilis, or one of the many other thousands of different strains, that is going to be up to Mark whether or not, I'm permitted or he wants to release those individual strains, because in all of my products, there are a multitude of strains. There's at least 4 or 5 or even way more in some cases of different families of bacteria, and different things have been included. So like I was saying, unlike the Novozyme product that was one species of bacteria, Bacillus firmus, we may have Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus pumilus, and all these different things that are combined with a multitude of different strains within each of those families. And so basically, I just copyrighted or trademarked multi-strain technology. And that's what's going to be on my new labels, because we're not one single source of a bacteria family. And no one single source is going to do the job as well as a multitude of families of bacteria, or species of bacteria, I should say, and the different strains. For example, right now in the nematode product, there is chitosan is added to the product, but additionally, there are cryproteins, which help to dissolve that oily waxy layer on insects or nematodes. And once you start whittling away at that, then there's the bacteria that starts degrading the chitin exoskeleton. Once you get beyond that stage, we actually have added a Bavaria fungus, which I don't mind telling you, the broad class of the family, that actually enter into the body of that insect or nematode and finish it off. So basically, it's a 1, 2, 3 knockout punch.
But that's nowhere on your label. It's nowhere on your literature.
It is not. I do
Are
explain
you gonna
that
move up here?
technology when I talk, but no, it is not on there.
Are you going to move up here, Frank, and go see superintendents with us for the next 5 years?
That would be financially tough.
Well,
I get what you're saying.
this is what you're asking us to do, and trust us. And then, but again, if I could validate what you just said, I don't know if that's a reality. I just don't. I mean, I'm not saying it's not real. I'm saying that, okay, some of this will be anecdotal, but at some point in the game, if you really want to take a lot of market share away from, the Bears of the world and the Syngentas, you're going to have to get in the freaking game with the university. Now, I am a good professor. Now, I am in the armpit of the world. I am in the freaking transition zone. And we're growing cool season grasses. How does, Mark's stuff, work on his stuff, which sounds like mainly warm season grasses? Is it going to work the same on cool season grasses where we're in the transition zone and it's ignorant? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if you.
Well, it's going to work the same no matter whether it's a cool or a warm season, but I'll let Mark elaborate on that quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's say northern versus southern. You have different, different diseases or different issues on each one. I think it's going to colonize the same. You're going to have more colonization or more growth when it's warmer, for sure. But you're still going to have a lot of activity in the northern part, whether it's a cool season or cool soils, for example. You're still going to have lots of activity happening. So the bacteria are not going to differentiate whether the type of grass they have. As long as they're using the sugars in the grass, they're going to be growing and they're going to be functioning. So every time we isolate a new species, bacteria, we do over 1,000 tests on each of them. So we know exactly what the functions are and how to formulate them for best use. So when I get information as far as what the, what the goal is on a new formulation, we're able to go to our database and then formulate specifically for, those goals, so those objectives.
I mean, but are the products different per region is what I'm asking.
Well, currently, right now, they're not as far as in Frank's products. So, each one of those products he has is going to be the same formulation. Ultimately, we could do differences or make differences, whether it's northern, southern, cool season, warm season. We could do that.
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is I got guys spraying $200,000 worth of fungicides on one 18-hole golf course.
Yeah.
Chris doesn't have that anywhere in the Carolinas. It's because he's that Bermuda grass. It's a different planet. It's a different world. The pressures of disease are night and day. Our pressures up here are ignorant, and we're growing cool season grasses. So I'm trying to stress you. You're going to come up into this. You're going to come up into the Washington D.C. area. You are coming to a place where it's ignorant place to grow grass, and so their tolerances for success and failure are going to be much brighter and clearer than south, just because of the grasses. Okay.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
You got to be careful what you say to your customer,
Yeah.
what guarantees you make. Well, you're making no guarantees on your product label, on your literature. Trust us. I have a lot of guys that'll trust me to a certain degree. And so does this guy here, and so does the other guy who's not here. We can get guys to try things, but we're only going to have a couple shots at the window. If they don't see results and aren't able to measure those results in a pretty reasonable period of time, they're going to tell you to get your shit out the door, and you get back in. It's going to be. And by the way, bad news travels a lot faster than good news. I can say that especially in this lovely industry, the golf course superintendents, they can bitch like no others. Look at the guy's almost done. I mean, look at him. How long were you golf course superintendent, Frank?
What's that?
How long were you a golf course superintendent?
I was a superintendent for 3 years in Myrtle Beach.
It put 10 years on his life, just like that.
Yeah. There was a lot of
Frank knows how to bitch.
there's a lot of things that can put 10 years on your life, such as a mechanic that bought $6,000 worth of bolts because the lady had a nice body. Yeah, and I made him return them all. But anyway, yes, absolutely. That was pretty much a 24/7 job. If I had to be there, I had to be there. So
My point is that Chris has those guys as customers. We have those guys as customers. We have had them for many, many moons, and we're gonna when we come in the door with this stuff, we need to know what we're saying, how we're saying it, what we're able to do in terms of validating it. And I'll give Frank. Frank said to me, he's willing to work with us in terms of some product out there, but and just so you know, Frank, if you give us product, we're just not going to give it away. We're not. To somebody who is not going to try and validate the technology.
right, I understand.
Go, hey, here, have this, because you'll just step over it as you're walking into the door every time. Because when you give somebody something, it's worth that much. It's free, and that's worthless. So, but there are some guys that we've already built relationships that are doing biological programs with us currently with the Verma technology that we've used. A company that you may or may not be familiar with. You might want to look at them. Southern Organics. You can check out their websites, and it's been fairly, we've had an ignorant past year, and weather's, I'm talking too much, but weather's was ignorant beyond belief this year for you guys and us. And that basically, I won't say it wiped out the year, but it came pretty close. So, So, but this year's another year, so we'll even get a better read on it. So some of those guys that are already bought into this, this is a perfect year. In addition to what you're doing, put this out on half of your golf course, not the other half, and see if there's a dramatic difference. You know, and if there is, then we can get something. Oh, and by the way, this guy Rodriguez he's going to come in and speak. He has a patented process to do this validation, and he can also give you this. But we'd want to have what you're going to give them in terms of their soil evaluation, that whole report done from some other existing golf course, so they can know what the hell they're going to get for that.
Yeah,
Sure.
that makes sense.
And then I have a question for you, Tim, going back to more information on the label in the sales literature and whatnot. If this were your if these were your products, knowing that who you're going to be going to in the field, what would you like to see on the sales literature and on the label? I'm assuming at least the bacteria families. Am I correct on that?
Correct. A lot of the guys, a lot of the superintendents, you know, are highly educated. And they know the product that you mentioned earlier, and they'll know, you know, they've been at a lot of these talks. You know, we used to sell TX1, we used to sell, you know, Pseudomonas, we used to sell, what was it?
Bacillus.
Yeah, Bacillus for soil.
And when you say families, are you talking, you know, in the
Species.
families, or are you saying genuses?
Yeah, the genus.
The genus,
Genus.
okay.
The genus.
All right.
I mean, at least that, because there's nothing to distinguish any of those sales sheets from the other one, other than, oh, by the way, you can't sue us, and I mean, they, you know, I'm sure a lawyer was involved, but you've got to give them something other than therapy SP soil.
Right. You're wanting more than just the bullet points on the
You
front.
know, now if you can say to them, okay, we can't tell you the
Yeah, proprietary blend of
proprietary blend, we
of
can't.
Pseudomonas, Bacillus, you know, with a colony count or X amount of CFUs per, or whatever the term is, per gram or ounce or pound or,
Whatever helps us separate you from every other
yeah,
company.
Okay.
just
I mean,
a little bit of meat
I
on
mean,
the
I can
bone.
send you what the guy, and you know, I don't know if it's legal what he's doing or if it's true. The guy from Southern Organics, you know, the Vermiplex, I can send you the label he has in terms of his, you know, fungal units that he's got on there. Whether or not, I'd love you to run his products in your test. Just tell me what the hell it does have. You know?
We've done that with a few companies, and it hadn't favored well for them.
I don't
And
doubt that.
And that was Third Party Lab. We even had it done.
Well, he's got a story, and I don't, you know, he's a piece of work. Seen some neat stuff, but you know, he tells me that, you know, Bayer calls him every year to buy his company for millions of dollars, and he turns them down. And I'm like, you know, Ron, I'd take it. So he goes, well, they're just gonna bury it because they want to sell more chemicals, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. So I'm just saying to you, you know, and the BioJect, we used to brew them up at 10 to the 7th, you know, 10 to the 8th, and put them out every day. And honestly, there's still guys to this day using BioJect that I sold that swear by it. They say when they turn it off, brown patch comes like there's no tomorrow. Now, if I can, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this product to those guys, because that technology is about to go away. Because the one guy that used to be a minority partner in my company 25 years ago is the guy still doing the service work on the goddamn systems. And when he's done, it's all done. All the loyalty of those guys are going to go away. So I can go to them right now and say, hey, why don't you start putting this out in your rough instead of the BioJect? And tell me if you don't see, you know, better results. Oh, and by the way, I've got a system on how to test it and validate it and all the rest of it.
Well, Mark and I will have a conversation about this, about the genuses and the labeling of the genuses and the CFU counts. I know that Mark and I have both been exposed with the previous employer that did do that, but again, this is Mark's thing, and so at that point, if we did decide to move forward with that, let's just say that we did that, but what else would you be looking for? I mean, I have a great idea, but I want to hear it from you as far as any other verbiage. I mean, I can provide you, which I'm actually working on right now, bullet points, and Mark and I were talking about this earlier this morning about frequently asked questions regarding products like this in the industry. So I'm assuming that would be quite beneficial to you, like quick selling points, why these products are what they are, why they're better, what makes them unique, and then of course any questions that come up regarding them and having those answers.
Well, the one thing I do like about your label is the mixing instructions. What it is with golf course superintendents I've found is that once they're in, it immediately goes to use and logistics. What are the do's? What are the don'ts? Do mix, don't mix. Is it an issue with, all the stuff that they've heard? UV, not a problem. UV, not a problem. You put stuff like that on a problem.
Can spray with fungicides.
Yeah, can spray with fungicides.
Certain classes of fungicides. There are some that you cannot, you don't recommend.
Yeah, do not spray with a biocide. All the do's, do nots, you need to cover. So
On the label, you're saying?
at least on the text sheet, not on the label necessarily,
Okay.
at least on the text sheet, you have all the do's and don'ts.
Well, actually, that will be extremely easy to do. And right here, I just pulled up, which we can go through later. But basically, I've got a whole list of bullet points regarding the bacteria, what they do, temperatures, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of bullet points.
Well,
I can put something together like that.
We'll look at those and put the key ones on that need to be on the text sheet at the very least. If
Right.
family, maybe not the strain, and just you could even put such strains are proprietary information that are protected, will kill you if you find them out. I don't know if they have the ability to take your product and reverse engineer it and figure out what strains you're using.
I know you asked that before. We'll let Mark go ahead, and Mark, you can address the two of you on that.
Yeah, that's a lot more difficult to do than you would think. We've tried to do that. It's very difficult because many of the, say like Bacillus, for example, there's over 1,000 of them, and they're very closely related, cousins. And so what we do is that we have our own isolation of Bacillus and Pseudomonads and Rhodopseudomonas. We do a variety of bacteria that we isolate. We have our own strains for them. They do something differently than what you find commercially, like through a Bayer or Syngenta over the counter. So it's a lot. It's difficult to find out. You can find out the family, you can find out overall the general genus of it, but to know the species and know that particular identification or ID of it, the variety of it is really, really, really difficult to do.
So what will your validation test show?
Well, yeah, we're going to show it down. We're going to show the genus. We're also going to show the category. So we challenge it against nitrogen, against phosphorus, against potassium. So we can then categorize them, the different varieties of bacteria or microbes in the soil that are able to solubilize or mineralize certain nutrients. And so they all fall into different categories. And that's what we'll show on the testing. If there's a necessity to go down to the gene and species level, then we do that kind of specially. Besides that test, we're able to do that. But it's a much more difficult thing and cumbersome thing to do, to actually reverse engineer a product, especially if it has a consortia in there, more than one or two strains. It's really hard.
So my question was though, so if that's the case, then we tell a guy, we're going to put this stuff out. Then you're going to come back and you're going to test it. First, you're going to test it before it's there, just to show them what's there and their soil health. Then you're going to test it after you do applications. what are you going to show them that says that's my stuff versus what was there prior?
Yeah, you'd be able to see without going down and trying to identify the actual organism in the soil and doing those counts. We could do that. I mean, you can also do what types of organisms are able to increase in populations over time, saying that, hey, our bacteria are able to improve colonization of certain categories in the soil and release nutrients at increased rates. So you see population growth explosions over the season. And so we can do that. We can show that, showing increased colonization, greater populations.
But it really won't show that it's your bug. You just show the change in the biodiversity of the soil.
Yeah. To show that it's our bug, you show different concentrations over time. So say you do 3 tests during the season, that can provide a trend. Day 1, day 60, day 120, just for example. You start seeing increases in growth. That's your bacteria responsible for doing that, colonizing, allowing for increased mineralization and carbon cycles to accelerate, allowing for better growth and more growth
No, again, devil's advocate, wouldn't that also change just on temperature? I mean, you get spring.
No. Well, I hear what you're saying. So when you see over time, say you have a field or a golf course that's been applied very little biological over the past number of years, just chemical programs, herbicides, synthetic fertilizers. What we tend to see is 2 to 3 dominant microbial cultures that dominate. Everything else basically subsides. When that happens, that's a bad thing because you lose biodiversity. And you have those strains that are really only interested in subsisting, not helping the turf mineralize and control and clean up the soil. So that you have a really low level of biodiversity. So you can test that, for example, and you're going to see that your biodiversity in the soil in that sample is very low. You add our product to that, you're going to see greater biodiversity. That's responsibility or accountability directly goes back to the product treatment in the soil. So if you have good colonization of greater diverse species, you're going to have species that are intended in there. The functioning of those species are specifically to help mineralize and to provide nutrients for the turf. And so you can then look at that, and over a trend, you can start seeing greater diversity, more colonization, and greater populations as the season progresses.
Well, I'd say
versus in the past.
Couldn't you, I don't know how much this testing or verification would cost, but actually have a control if we could find a superintendent would do it and do it right? Do 2 samples at the beginning of the season, and then follow up on of them.
Oh, absolutely.
One's being
Yeah,
that would be the verification.
Absolutely. That'll prove right there diversity increases over the season. So you're going to have carryover. You're going to have a long-term colonization diversity.
But the question is what are we selling? Are we selling them insect? Are we selling them disease suppression? Our major buzz here would be disease suppression and insect with this ABW situation. Chris got mole crickets down south, and he'd be looking for a lot more of the fertilizer aspect than we would up here.
Sure.
It probably would be nice if we could release a lot of the phosphorus that's tied up in the soil, because we have a tremendous amount of phosphorus in most of our soils up here. I'm not sure about Chris's.
The same down here.
Yeah, I think a blend, like Frank, a blend of the soil probiotic, which then will release phosphorus, release all these nutrients in the soil, provide turf health, along with disease and insect, nematode type of formulation. It'd be a really good product for that, for your area.
Right, and that's the product that I'm showing there now, the INA product.
Yeah, mineral release, nutrient release.
Yes.
The only thing that could release bound up nutrients, minerals in the soil are microorganisms. Nothing else really.
We sold azospirillum as the nitrogen released through the bioject. I don't know if there's azo in there or what, but azobacteria.
We have azo. Yeah, there are different types of nitrogen, cyclers, phosphorus, potassium, calcium. There are different categories of microorganisms that we actually push through different cycles to force them to start producing enzymes specific for calcium release, zinc release, boron release, iron release. So then we have those categories that we can then provide if, say, the soil test shows deficiencies in those levels, those microorganisms, then, those are all these possibilities to provide them back to the customer if they're interested. But microorganisms can do a number of things. Like I said, they divide very quickly. So to provide good population profiles in the soil, very important.
Well, the good news is about being where we are is we also have a lawyer about every square inch. And so therefore, we have.
You guys are in the swamp, huh?
Oh, come on up. It's exciting. I'm leaving soon. But it's what I'm saying to you is that they're under a lot of pressure right now, and that's not going to go away. There was a push. We now have a Republican governor in the state of Maryland, which kind of put everything on the back burner, but they were about to try to eliminate the use of fungicides and pesticides entirely.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's probably still not going to go away. And there's best management practices that are going in that just were installed at the Maryland that we could bring this into, I won't say seamlessly, but if we play it right and we validate it right, we might be able to get support not only from universities, and again, I have a doctorate at the University of Maryland who I think would be all over this stuff. So, but all this stuff costs money and
Yes.
and time and effort and all the things that take to do a business. So, that's out there. So, for what it's worth.
Okay. I understand.
So, which product do you sell the most of?
Well, currently it's the soil product because that's the base and core product of all of the different ones that I have. In fact, I don't recommend any of the other products going down without at least that one being in combination with it, because the soil one is a general probiotic product to restore the actual rhizosphere. So the idea is we can get the rhizosphere healthy, everything else will fall into place. And if we need extra help, be it insect, nematode, or disease, we can combine those two products. The black layer product, I don't know how much black layer issues you have in your area, but on the greens in Florida, it's really bad. And literally I have seen I've seen muck soil turn around and be productive soil within 3 months. And that was basically 3 applications, an 8 ounce, a 4 ounce, and followed up by another 4 ounce. And I watched roots go from a ½ an inch to 5 inches in a 5-month period. And a company that did that trial for me is called Southeastern Turfgrass. John Wicker out of Jacksonville, Florida, up did that trial. So, great. I mean, yes, to some degree there is faith involved and trust in these types of products. Mark and I were talking about this earlier today. No, we don't really have all the university data. And yes, there is some blind faith here, but at the same time, if you were to identify the individual families or genuses of these bacteria, you can trace them back for decades where there is proven data that, these specific bacteria do what we're saying that they do. So we're not reinventing the wheel, but yes, to say, this INA product, for example, has 5 strains of bacteria, let's say, in it, and it's guaranteed to work. Well, I can see where that would be a tough one to swallow as a customer. I mean, I was on the other side. I was buying from people like yourself, and, so I understand that. So both of us want to make it where it's easier for you to be able to market it. Again, not having university data, yes, there is credibility for that. On the other side of that, though, there's also some discredibility, meaning that having been in the industry, and hearing all these people dumping money from big companies into these trials, and then the product gets out there, like, what the heck happened? I thought this stuff worked. Well, it didn't work in my situation, didn't work in his situation. So I've also seen that, and I'm not knocking the university system. It's a great system. I'm just saying that it's on both ends of the spectrum with it.
Well, We
And
had,
the proof is, if you see it work yourself, you know you got something. And you get a customer out there that sees the product go down, and everything else has remained the same, but this one new introduction, and you're seeing improvement. Well, there's probably a pretty good darn chance that it's related to that. So there's a lot of field work that's happened and a lot of feedback that has come from customers, and that's, you know, at this point in time where Mark and I have pulled so much of our information from. In addition to, like I said, if you go in and you research these individual genuses, you will find out that there's certain genuses that do certain things and some better than others.
okay. Chris, questions?
Nope.
Rob?
No,
Well, now it's okay. How do we do this? You know, are you making changes to the labels? Is that what you said?
Yes, and so that's one of the reasons I brought up about these strains, because once Mark and I have a chance to discuss this further, if he permits that, and we can decide to do that somehow, then I will amend the label to include all that information also, or at least provide it on a sheet, a technical sheet. But again, that's something that we got to discuss, and we can go from there on that one.
Okay. Well,
But yes, my labels are in the work right now. In fact, I had received some proofs to look at today. One of the things that we added to the label, a little rectangular block that says exempt from, you know, the EPA registration number 40. So Mark felt that that needed to be on there, and so I've added that. I've also put on there that you know, we do like the products to be sprayed as standalone. However, if you would like those products to be added to something, you would need a written approval from us. Why is that important? And here's why. What's happening with the companies like Monsanto or now Bayer is when their products are mixed with other companies, let's say that a Bayer product's mixed with a Syngenta product, and there's a bad situation that takes place. There's a bad result from these two products in the field. Well, everybody's starting to point the finger now. It's Syngenta's fault. No, it's Bayer's fault. And it's just going back and forth. So what they are doing now is actually in-house testing of other companies' products with their products. So basically you have to write to them. You have to get with them and say, look, I have X pesticide that I want to combine with your pesticide A, and if they test it and say, hey, it's okay, compatibility, not just compatibility, but from a result standpoint and an injury standpoint. And they say, hey, I give it my blessing. They give you a letter in writing saying that by a legality, you know, through legality reasons and a written document, you can go ahead and do that. And the reason I know that is because I was with TMAC, and I still represent some of the TMAC company products, but I was an employee of TMAC Agro based out of Philly or Reading, and we were actually recommending that our products could be mixed with other things because ours were biostimulants and they were non-detrimental. They were safe products. However, Monsanto came back and said, no. They sent us a letter. You cannot do that. If you want to do this, submit your product to us in the form that you're selling it. We will test it. Upon approval, we will give you a letter in writing saying that you can recommend this with our product in the same tank going out on this crop. So that's a lot of air I just blew out.
It's also going to take a lot of effort. I mean, seriously.
yeah, if you're saying that it has to be sprayed by itself, that becomes limiting, and especially in a year like
Well, it is.
it's had.
It is, and that's something else that Mark and I were discussing right again before we got on the phone, because I told Mark I had added this statement, and if Mark is okay with it, you know, and we both feel comfortable, you know, we can just say sure, because Mark has told me way before I ever met you folks, way back in the beginning when I was doing this and starting up with Mark, that I asked him, is this stuff safe to be mixed in the tank with any pesticide whatsoever on the market? And he said yes, except the one that he had mentioned. What was it? What was the one thing you can't mix the bacteria with?
The biocide.
Biocides.
Yes,
So
yeah, fine.
other than biocides, or let's just think about it in another way. If you got a fumigant, such as metam sodium, chloropicrins, or methyl bromides, obviously they're going to kill everything.
Right. Now,
So
you don't, I haven't looked real hard at the label. It's a water soluble, so I assume you want to put it in the water first. There's no pH issues on this product?
No. It of course it works better in lower pH versus high pH. And it's always preferred, even for just plant growth. Lower pH is preferred. Typically, what we do here is when we put it in water, it's going to let it sit for a while. We typically reduce the pH. We'll use a phosphoric acid to reduce the pH, and that helps with the whole stability of the product. Really helps to control any kind of mold or fungal contaminants in the air. That's what we typically do. But other than that, everything else is fine. We've done a lot of testing with the common herbicides, pesticides, insecticides with very little loss of efficacy. And yeah, it's just really biocides. And yeah, one other thing we don't recommend is in a jug, mixing it with high pH humic acid, liquid humic acid. For some reason, like 8, 9, 10 pH humic acid in a jug with bacteria, they don't play well. We've done a ton of
You hear that,
testing.
Chris?
What's that?
Is Chris still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, did you hear
Okay.
that, Chris?
Yep,
All right.
I'm listening.
Make it,
Yeah, that's the only thing. Low pH, like fulvic acid or low pH humic acid is perfectly fine. High pH humic acid, they fight for some reason. There's a battle. In the tank, in the field, it's fine, but in a jug, like a 1 gallon jug, you don't want to do that.
does it make it into Jello or
It does something, and you'll see some expansion of the jug.
okay?
Yeah, and so but it's just with high pH humic acid, around 9 pH to above that. That's the only thing we don't recommend blending or mixing with. But other than that, any kind of synthetic fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, liquid adjuvant, surfactant, any kind of chemical herbicide, pesticide. It's
You say
perfectly fine.
herbicides, pesticides, but not biocides. When you say biocides, does that include fungicides?
No. And typically biocides are used mainly in the oil side, oil fields.
Okay.
They use reservoirs. So that's what we got the information from. In agriculture or turf, you rarely use biocides that actually just kill bacteria. So yeah, fungicides are not considered biocides.
There might be, I think one of the mold killers is a biocide.
Well, there used to be a product that was a hydrogen peroxide-based fungicide that I would think would not be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. You want to wait at least a few hours to a day after application of that to apply bacteria.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we start doing this, Mark, you're willing to fly up to the colder areas of the world and make presentations?
Yeah, possibly.
We'll get here
We have to
eventually.
discuss. You guys are in DC, you said?
We're in Baltimore, but
In Baltimore.
we cover Baltimore, Washington. We're about a mile away from BWI International,
Oh, I see.
but we cover
Yeah.
the whole Philadelphia, Washington D.C. That whole area, and it's probably the highest budgets on in the country with
Yeah.
and they're
Well, you keep hearing, I think, DC area or the metro area now has the most millionaires and just super wealthy are in your area now.
pretty much
Valley, it's like DC metro area.
pretty
Yeah.
much.
How much is government though?
Oh, it's all
know.
government-based. Yeah. The contractors, the lawyers, the politicians, yeah. It's all,
Really? What? No, are your group? You guys are the ones with the trucks going out there and buying as well?
No, we have trucks delivering. We have our own
Okay.
truck that delivers. We don't have companies that spread. Chris has done some of that down south using contract spreaders, but those guys are getting harder and harder to find and harder to book. So it's just, we're not into it that hard. Our stuff, we're not a traditional company. We do a lot of sand aggregate up here in the Mid-Atlantic. We do a lot of organic base fertilizer. We've been a niche company for 20, we do seaweed extract, we do, which is a EPA registered product, is a PGR. Very niche, validation. So what we're talking about, we've done since we've been in existence. What tends to happen is companies come in and they have various, just like you were involved with a company where shit went down and they went away. Basically, that's what happened with BioJect. BioJect was a good company that was doing quite well, and they had a lot of opportunity, and they kind of flushed it. Once they got public, that was the goal. And unfortunately, we didn't realize that. And then they started, making up all kinds of stuff. And then they went away, and the technology somewhat stayed in existence, but not so much. So you'll have, people come and go in this industry, and we don't want to do business with, something that's we want something that, if we're gonna spend the time and effort, and it is a significant amount of time and effort to build a business, we want protections that what we build is not gonna be just handed off to somebody else. 'Cause I've had many conversations with many manufacturers, and one of my manufacturers says, his line is, they just can't help themselves. And what he's referring to is somebody will come in and build a business for somebody, and then somebody will come in from the corporation and go, hey, if we just put another 2 distributors in that area, we'll sell 3 times the amount of product we're selling. And then they do that and cut the legs out from other salespeople and all the people. Well, you sell it, and Joe sells it, and Bob sells it. This stuff, right. Price gets marginalized. It's just that happens, and they just can't help themselves. So see, we'll try to protect ourselves as much as possible, and you will do the same. And then you either have a win-win, build it, help somebody build business, or you don't.
Right. Like we had discussed before, that's the only way I'm going to do it. I've been with too many companies that have done it the other way, like you said. You get somebody going, you support them, they build it. Next thing you know, they think, well, if I get a couple more distributors, I'm going to get more. But on the other side of that, what they don't realize is you're just eroding the profit margin of your distributors, because you can't tell them what to sell the price at or set the price at, because that's illegal. So, they're going to go in behind you, say, oh, I'll give it to you for $5 less, or whatever the case might be.
Yep.
And then it's just a self-feeding bad cycle until finally nobody wants to handle it anymore.
Yep.
Most
of the people are order takers in this industry.
Oh my God.
They are not technical salespeople. They are order takers.
Yep.
I've seen that way too much. Yeah, to your point about that, I always thought having multiple distributors, trying to work that way, it's too much drama. You know what I mean? Because people bitch too much. To be simpler, not more complicated. And I think Frank's the same way. Life is short.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to be around too many people complaining too often. You just want to have good business relationships.
Well,
and then go retire. I mean, you don't want to. I don't want to be hearing complaints all the time, fires, things like that. So we've seen that before, and it's just not worth it. It's better just to build one strong business with one distributor in an area, and then do the same thing in other areas of the country.
Okay.
right.
Well, we're interested. We're interested in moving forward. We need to get things buttoned up quickly because the season is upon us, and discuss agreements and how you handle it. And then once this thing gets going, you're going to get 1 million calls from the areas we're covering. Somebody always try to go by us. That's the nature of people. That's what people do.
They're going to get referred right back to you. So
And that's, when they come in, you get the call or the email. Oh yeah, send me this from Maryland. All of a sudden, you're like, here's the distributor's name. As long as you're doing that, then we're good. If we walk and see product going out sold by somebody else, well, that's when it all stops.
well, I'm set up like I told you before. Currently, I have a distributor who is Tennessee, and one who covers all of Florida. and the one in Tennessee has a 5-state area, which he does have South Carolina and North Carolina. But then after meeting with Chris, I went back to that distributor. I said, are you ever going to go out to the coastal areas of North and South Carolina? And he goes, no. I said, well, I would like those for another distributor. He said, no worries. So that part Chris has, and everything else in the areas that you are currently wanting, that you've been speaking of, are totally available.
Okay.
So Kentucky, Tennessee, North and South Carolina are with this other gentleman based out of near Chattanooga, Tennessee. But you've got the coastal areas in North and South Carolina. I've already told Chris I would honor, and my other distributor has agreed to do.
Now you
What
distribute.
about here in the Piedmont though, Frank, in the Greensboro area and Pinehurst?
We can talk about that. He told me when I asked him about those coastal areas, I said, well, how much are you really going to do in the Carolinas? And he goes, well, quite honestly, I've got one really good customer over there he told me about, which is a garden center. So that's a whole different
Right.
package size and everything that he's looking at. But he seemed to be open probably beyond the coastal areas. And it's surely something I could definitely go and ask him. So if you can outline those areas for me that you're thinking about, North and South Carolina, then I will present it to him, and I'm sure that something can be worked out that way.
Who's the
I will
distributor?
do it.
Who's the distributor in Tennessee?
Beatty Fertilizer, Beaty Fertilizer, actual town are located in Tennessee, which is halfway between Knoxville and Chattanooga, a little closer to Chattanooga. It's about a half hour north of Chattanooga.
Okay.
You said 5-state. The 5th state, would that be Georgia then? Or would it be Virginia?
He has Georgia, he has Arkansas, he has some of the other, or Alabama, excuse me.
So,
Okay.
Has Alabama,
South.
Georgia, North and South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Okay, and Eastern Gulf is Florida distributor.
Where's that?
Is the Southeastern Gulf your Florida distributor?
Yes, he is my Florida distributor. He's based out of Jacksonville. His company is called Southeastern Turfgrass Supply.
Okay, they do all of Florida.
He has all Florida right now.
Okay, because
From a turf standpoint.
what's that?
From turf only.
All right. Well, I got a guy who I am in the process of setting up who might be a great distributor for you, but he's in the Naples, Fort Myers area, so
Yeah.
don't know if he's got that covered, he's got it covered. But I think
Well, here's the thing. He
Yeah,
can,
I have to head out. I have another appointment, but it was a pleasure. We'll catch up again very soon.
very good. Could you
Thanks,
forward-
Mark.
Could you forward me your contact information, please?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Take care.
Talk later, okay?
Very good.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll take
Thanks,
care.
Mark.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So regarding the Naples situation, from a see, here's the thing, the way I'm set up from a distributor standpoint, between the distributor and the dealer, it's at the distributor's discretion. He can sell and get the full margin on it all the way up to MSRP if he chooses.
Right.
Or he can sell to a dealer,
Another
and
dealer.
he'd be looking at roughly 25 to 30% margin
Got it.
selling to the dealer.
And which label am I coming off of? Our pricing would be the commercial product dealer cost or the commercial product distributor cost?
Commercial product distributor cost would be your price.
Okay. Okay.
And something I have not said to you that I can extend to you also that I'm doing for the Florida distributor. I had an order for an 18-hole golf course on all of his greens come in for 7 different products. And he wanted special packaging done. And I am totally okay with that. Basically what I did for them is on his first application, for example, in March, he wanted X number of ounces per acre of a select 6 products. The same in a second app in March, and then in April, he was using, say, 3 products with different rates. And so what I did is I blended those combined products, meaning I took the nematode, the disease, the soil, and the nitrogen and the micronutrient product, mix them together and package them in one package. So when it's time for him to do that specific application on that month and day or month and week that he chooses, he can dump that one package in instead of opening up all these other little bags.
Boy, I wouldn't offer that up too much.
It's hard. It's hard. It takes time.
Well, once you
But-
give a superintendent options, I mean,
Right.
you really want to stay away from that. I truly, I'm just,
And I appreciate you saying that because this distributor, he likes things a certain way, and he's been a great friend and a business. We've had a great business relationship for a very long time, including I go back with his dad prior in my Scotts and Lesco years. So I do that for him. But yes, I would prefer to sell my packages in 4-ounce or 12-ounce, and let the end user put them in the tank that way.
correct. Thank you, please, God. Ugh. Ugh. You know, but, and then I don't know how you label that, but whatever, you know, I'm just saying, okay, let's get these labels done.
Okay.
You know, let's move on to the next steps, and then we need to do what we need to do contractually or whatever. And I
Very good.
am here all month. I didn't go to the national, so I'd like to get this buttoned up here
Yep.
by the end of the month. Okay.
Well, absolutely. And for what it's worth, I've got to have it buttoned up on my end with the labels and everything because I've got orders going out and I don't have updated information. So you'll be assured that it's going to get done for everybody. And I will get with Mark as soon as we end our meeting, and I will talk to him about putting the strings on there, and I will push for him to allow me to do that along with the CFU counts.
What? God, it went right out of my head. What was I about to ask you? You're going to do that. You're going to give me samples after you get the labels fixed.
And I'm going to give you I'm going to send you product book is what I'm going to send you, an product book with everything in it.
With the new labels, and then you can
Yes.
send me that again when you update everything.
Yes. And then when I send that to you, I will also send you a flash drive with all of the files.
Okay, well, we'll work on pricing and application per acre and all that fun stuff. And there's something else I was going to say to you, and it went right out of my head.
Well, just at some point, we get all the ducks in a row in the spring to come up and work with us a little bit and go see a few customers or have a lunch.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be more than glad to do that. And actually, I was born and raised in Milford, Delaware, so be glad to come up that way and be nice to get.
Lower, slower Delaware.
Yeah, exactly. And it is slower, or at least it was.
Still is.
Well, gentlemen, do you have any other questions for me right now?
No, I think we're done. I think we exhausted. I'll remember what I was going to ask you and send you an email.
It can be exhausting and a lot of technical information there. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I look forward to moving forward with you, and I will get you all the information that I promised and we discussed.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye bye.
All right, guys. Bye. Oh, I know what I was going to ask him. What's his turnaround?
Go ahead. I'm still here.
What do you think your turnaround is on an order?
Oh, shucks. That's quick because it can be produced in 24 to 48 hours. So probably a week. But here's the thing. I keep inventory. So I can turn it around in a day, and I ship everything USPS 2-day priority. So you're looking at about 3 days.
Okay.
Where are you located? I didn't get that.
I'm just outside. If you look on a map, I'm just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
The name of the town I'm in is
That's
called
all right.
Louisville,
Louisville's right here.
and I'm about 2 miles from the Knoxville airport.
Okay.
Yep.
We're about 2 miles from the Baltimore airport.
Yep. And I'm actually here now because all my wife's family is local to here. And I basically no longer have family surviving me except for a sister in Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh,
So,
Roanoke. Good old Roanoke.
Yep, Roanoke, Virginia.
Pretty country.
Yep.
Yeah, very good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Yes, sir. You too. Bye now, gentlemen.
Bye.
I guess that's what you do.
All right, Carla. Please set me back up. Thank you. He was hitting a lot of buttons. He wanted to-
Just close stuff out.
Unsuccessfully.
Hit Nexus.